Albert Breer, the Monday morning quarterback, too little too late for the Jets?
No, I mean, I think their schedule is manageable from here on out, Dan. I think it does set up sort of a pivotal one, next week in Arizona. We've heard a lot about how challenging their schedule is, and two Thursday night games, two Monday night games, the travel, having a West Coast trip to then going to Tennessee, then playing Thursday night on the front end of the schedule, going to London. It's been a lot on them. And now they get 10 days of runway into another West Coast trip. And yeah, I mean, I think if you can get this one, then now all of a sudden you're within a game of getting to 5-6, and then you get your bye and a chance to reset. To me, the most encouraging thing about last night is, it was a tenuous week in that building. It was an uncomfortable week in that building. A lot of people felt like they were walking around on eggshells. A lot of like same old Jets vibes in that building. And, over the course of the first half, it sort of looked like all of that manifested. And somehow they were able to put their foot in the ground at halftime and just go. And in a lot of ways become the team we thought they were going to be coming into the year, right? So it's Aaron Rodgers making throws down the field to Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. It's Breece Hall running the ball effectively, and it's the defensive line dominating, sacking CJ Stroud 8 times. So, I don't know if that 30 minutes of football is an indicator of anything going forward, because the last time they played on Thursday night, they looked great also, and then they wind up losing 5 in a row coming out of that. But I wouldn't declare them dead yet. I also think the AFC is probably not as deep as we once thought. So maybe 9-8 gets you in the playoffs this year.
Give me the team, if they lose this weekend, will be sellers next week. Any trade deadline deals hinging on what happens this weekend, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that the two that kind of stand out in my mind, at least, one really stands out in my mind. I think one would be a seller. Another one might be more of a listener. The seller would be Cleveland. The listener would be the Rams. I think the Browns are right now in a spot where it's like, okay, we're 3-6. A lot of where we thought we were going is out the window. But if Jameis plays really well again and they get to 4 wins now, I mean, you can at least compete. And again, if the point of entry for the playoffs in the AFC is 9 wins, if they can play like they did around Joe Flacco last year, around Jameis Winston, maybe that's attainable for them. Whereas if they're 3-7, now you're talking about something else. And I don't think they're going to trade Myles Garrett, but those calls will certainly come. And, I think as far as like guys who are more realistic targets, I certainly think Zadarius Smith and Greg Newsome would be there for the taking. As for the Rams, they were in a weird spot going into their win last week against Minnesota, where calls had come on Cooper Kupp. And so they were, intently listening on offers for Cooper Kupp. What they told other teams is it would cost you more to get Cooper Kupp out of LA than it cost the Jets to get Devontae Adams out of Vegas. That was a third rounder that could become a second. So I don't know if anybody's willing to pay that price for Cooper Kupp, but I think, whether or not the Rams would accept such a deal, especially after Puka Nacua got banged up in practice this week again, might hinge on how the game against Seattle goes on Sunday.
What should the Lions do?
The Lions should make calls on pass rushers. The Lions should call, the Raiders about Max Crosby, and the Browns about Myles Garrett, but they should also make calls in the second level of the pass rusher market, because I don't think Crosby and Garrett are ultimately going to move. Doesn't hurt to ask. So, again, like a Zadarius Smith in Cleveland, a Jadeveon Clowney with the Panthers, I think they just need to get another pass rusher in there. The cool thing about it is I think Aiden Hutchinson coming back for the Super Bowl is realistic. You'd never consider a circumstance like his good luck. That was a nasty broken leg, the way that it looked. But the reality of the situation is he got pretty fortunate in a lot of different ways. No ligament damage, no artery damage, no nerve damage. It just so happened that, where the injury happened was 10 minutes away from one of the, from a level one trauma center, one of the best hospitals, in the country. And one of the best surgeons doing this particular procedure was there. And that's Dr. Alan Jones. And Aiden was in surgery less than 3 hours after he went down. So in just about every way after the injury, Hutchinson has really kind of been in a good place. So the idea that he could play for the Super Bowl is very real. So if you can bring in a pass rusher that can just add something, like a Zadarius Smith, like a Jadeveon Clowney, and then find a way to get through the NFC bracket. Now you're bringing Aiden Hutchinson back for the Super Bowl. That could be a pretty cool thing to watch. And I love where they're at as a team. I think the most interesting stat of the entire year might be that at one point in that game against the Titans, and I know it's the Titans, Dan, but at one point in that game, they had 9 passing yards and nine net passing yards and 42 points. Like, I think that just sort of speaks to how complete the team is. Like, to be able to do that, like through special teams, through defense, through playing field position is just incredible. And that's with a quarterback, who I think is playing at an MVP level.
Albert Breer, the Monday morning quarterback, the mmqb.com. If or when the Dolphins get eliminated, do you continue to play Tua?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to listen to the doctors and listen to Tua himself. And, I'm always uneasy, Dan, about football people making medical decisions, so there is that thing in the back of your head that each of these guys only has so many hits, right? Like that they can take, and there's a clock on everybody's body. And I think that's true. But, I also think you have to try to get the best effort out of everybody in the locker room. And if you're shutting down one guy, you're shutting down the quarterback to the detriment of other people in the locker room. That's a really tough place to be.
Yeah.
I also think Tua is going to want to play. I think, that defiant press conference he had before they played the Cardinals last week, I think sort of illustrates that. And it's his decision. I think, and I think everybody's heart's in the right place in this, but I think we're all sort of playing mom and dad to some degree with it, Reality is he's an adult. He has a lot more information today than a player like him would have had in the 90s on the consequences of going out there and playing. And he's choosing to go out there, and, do I have a level of concern for a player doing that? Yeah, of course I do. I'm human like everybody else. Like I don't want to see, the worst case scenario play out here, but ultimately it's his body and his decision. And, you just hope that he's doing what's best, not only for him, but for his family too.
I think we've discussed this. If I was the Bears, I wouldn't have brought back Matt Eberflus, make him a lame duck coach, and you have a rookie quarterback. I would have either said, let's extend him, let's get some continuity there, or I wouldn't have brought him back. You have this devastating loss that they just suffered. And, I mean, I don't know if the seat gets hotter. I think you brought up Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. Yeah. He's going to be the object of desire, probably in Dallas, in Jacksonville, if Chicago opens up. Kind of handicap those situations there and the role that Ben Johnson is probably going to play in this.
Yeah, well, let's start with what I actually said, because I think, as you know, the internet can take something and run wild with it. And sometimes a lie travels around the world faster than the truth puts on its pants, right? So I like what I said, and I was asked by, I'm on the show in Chicago on Cap and J Hud every week. And so we were discussing, different things and how the availability of one coach can affect another. And I said in passing, well, I had heard that the job that Ben Johnson really had his eye on last year was Chicago. Now, ultimately, the Chicago job didn't come open because Matt Eberflus did a great job down the stretch of that season. So, that was purely a hypothetical, in December and January, far from it actually manifesting. Now, if the question is like, where do the Bears stand with Matt Eberflus? I mean, he's done a great job on balance, and he's built a really complete team. And I go back to that opener, where they were able to win with Caleb Williams not playing very well, in that first game, and they took a block punt back for a touchdown, and they had a pick six in that game, and they were able to win in every which way. And I think he's built a team that's capable of winning a lot of different ways. So I have trouble just killing a guy for a really bad moment. And look, like he's accountable for that moment, no question. But I have trouble just throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this one. I think he's done a good enough job to certainly create a good environment for Caleb Williams to grow in, and a good enough job to like have everybody hit the pause button on this and let's see how the season plays out. Obviously, the team is at a very important juncture in deciding what's best for what looks like a full-fledged franchise quarterback, and those big decisions are coming as far as whether you extend Eberflus or go in another direction. But I think Eberflus deserves the rest of the year based on the job that he's already done there.
Great to talk to you as always. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Albert.
All right, thanks, DP.